In the last few weeks, we've spoken a little bit about capital gains tax and how this can be reduced by using various reliefs. Now, capital gains tax was introduced by James Callaghan in 1965, and there have been various changes over the years. Chancellors seem to be incapable of leaving it alone for more than a few years at a time. It currently yields about £5 billion a year. Now, the question here is, how many tax rates are there applicable to capital gains tax at the present time? The answer is 4. Now, over the years, we've had various changes. There have been single rates, there have been multiple rates, but we now have 4. The underlying rate is 10% if you're a basic rate taxpayer, 20% if the gain puts you into higher rates. This doesn't include residential property. Now, residential property, as everybody knows, the government doesn't like people who let out residential property, and if they want to sell it, they pay a higher rate of capital gains tax, 18% for basic rate, 28% for higher rates. So we have the ordinary rates for capital gains tax, we have the upper rate if it's residential property, but I want to focus now on the special rate, and this is the 10% rate, and this is where you qualify for entrepreneurs relief or the new investors relief. But what happens if you make more than one gain in a year? The relevance of this is the rate of tax that you pay in the basic rate band. So the special rate gains are utilised first in your basic rate band, then you can choose the order in which you set off other ones, but you'd be wise to use your residential gains first. Incorporating a business is not as advantageous as it once was. We used to be able to incorporate a business, sell the goodwill to the company, and pay very little tax. Now, that's all in the past, but what you can now do is to pay your 20% capital gains tax, but leave the balance outstanding in the director's loan account, pay a commercial rate of interest, and make use of the tax-free interest that you can now receive in the right circumstances. A little reminder now of entrepreneurs relief, a very important relief that's been around for a while. It relates to the disposal of a business, part of a business, or shares in your personal company. When it comes to selling shares in your company, there's a few key points to remember. You must be an employee or director of the company right up to the time you sell your shares. The company must be a trading company, and you must hold at least 5% of the ordinary shares and the voting rights on that company. Investors' relief is the new relief for the sale of unquoted shares. Now, the shares must be new ordinary shares. You must subscribe for the shares. You can't buy them second-hand. They must be issued after March 2016. It must be an unlisted trading company, and the shares must have been held for a continuous period of 3 years, commencing from April 2016. Now, there's a couple of warnings here that you need to pay attention to. The company must be a trading company when the shares are issued and for the whole time that you hold the shares. So it can't change its status. The other important point here is that neither you nor anybody connected with you can be an employee or director of the company. Now, there are certain exceptions to this, but as a general rule, this relief is for outside investors. What's the lesson here? I think the lesson here is that there are multiple rates of capital gains tax, that if you've got a disposal coming up, it needs careful planning so that you don't end up paying more tax than you absolutely have to. I'm Alan Long from the Long Partnership, making life less taxing.